So today is going to be the newest edition of me taking the most convoluted video idea possible and trying to make a video out of it. This one's going to be a very long one, very complicated one, so I'm going to have TG here with me today. I'll let him introduce himself.
What's going on, guys?
What?
TJ. We're in the
Damn.
building today, people. What you like the video? Why haven't you liked it? Anyway, we're here. We're talking about a very interesting topic for you today. We're gonna try and make it excellent for you guys, but I'm gonna let New Horizons continue.
Yeah, and just by the way, me and TG are also making a video that, will probably be out before this one will be out. But so check, look out for that. But anyway, so this video is basically going to be like a gauntlet type of video. We're going to be taking the 7 Hokage and putting them through a villain gauntlet. So it's going to be like the villains in each chronological arc. So, or more so like the final boss of each arc. So like you start with Zabuza and Haku, and it's gonna go all the way to like Kaguya, right? I'm not gonna give the exact list because we're gonna get to that, and we're all, some are gonna have to get skipped just to make it more brief or not make it so repetitive. The way this is gonna work is that we're gonna put each Hokage in the same condition as the original like heroes in the arc. So like in for the first one, it's going to be Zabuza and Haku versus the Hokage, but the Hokage is going to have to protect Tazuna. So they have like the same conditions that the original fighters had. But anyway, just to make this more generous for the Hokage, we're gonna make it so that the opponents have to have a very strong chance of winning for the Hokage not to advance to the next gauntlet, right? So we decided if the opponent doesn't have more than like a 60% chance to win, that we're gonna declare it a toss-up and we're gonna let the Hokage pass on. And so that's really it. We're going to get to like the specifics of each character we're going to be using. For Naruto, we're going to be progressively using more powerful Narutos as it goes on. So like starting with like part 2 and then Sage Mode and KCM, etc. So,
Yeah.
and just like one final thing to say is that this is going to be a very broad video. So for some fights that we feel like, if there's like one factor that decides it, we're just going to talk about that one factor. Or some of the closer fights will also be talked in more like a broad sense. So just try not to get very anal with this in the comments. This is going to be a very general video.
Yeah, each like topic can be a video in of itself, so we're trying to like respect everybody's time here.
I think we can go ahead and start with the first Hokage we're going to be using. We're going to be using Hiruzen.
So it's gonna be the old man Hiruzen that was fighting against Orochimaru. He'll be in the same scenario as like Team 7 was on the bridge against Zabuza and Haku. And his only condition in this area is to protect Tazuna as he fights. Now, realistically, even like by part 1 standards, Hiruzen's just kind of on another level than these characters. He has many ways to like protect Tazuna. He has this adamantine Yoi. He can like summon Enma to not only assist him in battle, but like protect Tazuna in like a little cage. And even Orochimaru started like shouting at the Hokage to not let Hiruzen even summon it. Realistically, he's gonna probably summon adamantine Yoi and just start brawling with Zabuza and Haku. And honestly speaking, there's no real foreseeable way for like Zabuza and Haku to like take down Hiruzen. He has like fire style to match the ice mirrors. You can make a case like one's like it might not be potent enough, but there's no real way to quantify that. All we know is that Genin Sasuke wasn't able to shatter the mirrors with fire style. So Hiruzen might be another matter entirely. So he might even be able to shatter them with Enma itself. So he really has like a lot to do. He might not clash with Zabuza directly, but he has a lot of large-scale ninjutsu and ways to protect Tazuna in this encounter, and he's honestly shown like really good feats. Even like looking later in the war arc, that just put him far above like what Zabuza and Haku are capable of. Like so, yeah, Hiruzen should clear pretty quickly. He does have like a decent way to protect Tazuna as well.
Yeah, it's just general like this is two Jonin versus like a Kage, right? There's a mismatch here, and mainly like the Earth style and the monkey stick can protect Tazuna very well, so it should be no surprise he clears this one. As for the second one, this is actually as far as Hiruzen goes because he lost this fight originally. Of course, I'm talking about the Orochimaru fight and the Chunin exams. So we kind of laughed when we got here because it's like, that's it for Hiruzen, right? But even if we're talking about like out of character, like if we want to take Hiruzen out of character, like if like let's say that he gets past the 2 summons somehow and kills Orochimaru. We still don't think that, like, let's say it's just him and the reanimations in the barrier. We don't think he can survive long enough for the attack to end and then the sound for it to drop the barrier in retreat, because we actually saw in that fight that Hiruzen was definitely he was definitely stronger than the two reanimations, but they were pushing him pretty hard. Orochimaru was saying like your breath is getting ragged and stuff. He's not going to be able to last long enough to outlast the barrier.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He only really gains any edge on the reanimations when Enma enters the fray and he gets the monkey staff. That's when he starts to do a lot better. But individually, he struggles quite a bit. Like even in taijutsu skirmishes and they're throwing jutsu out and stuff like that. It's just that he struggles a lot. And here he's in like chakra supply was just plummeting due to old age, so he wasn't even able to summon shadow clones and whatnot. So it's not even more so a question of like if Hiruzen was stronger than the people, like present in the battle, but like more so if he could outlast them, which was the big issue. Even in the original fight with him trying to pull Orochimaru's like soul out of his body, he wasn't able to outlast him. So it's really difficult to say for Hiruzen, and he really can't make it past this scenario due to his old age.
Yeah, so I mean, if he had gone past this, he probably could have gone a few fights longer. But it's just kind
Yeah.
of unfortunate that he happened to be the original fighter that lost in this second round. So that's
Yeah.
as far as old Harrison's gonna go. That means we can move on to Tsunade now, and I'll let TG talk about round one with Tsunade.
Yeah, this Tsunade in particular is going to be War Arc Tsunade, like the one that fought against Madara for perspective. The thing with Tsunade is that even in part one, she's relative to like Kakashi and Kabuto, like, Kakashi, the bar person in part one, like they're all related to one another. People make that comparison. And Kakashi was performing very well against Zabuza, especially when he unleashed his like full power, that being like Raikiri at this point. And this is strictly in part one. Tsunade grows far beyond that, being more so relative and a rival to like the Raikage and the Madara fight. And like when you put it in that kind of perspective, it's like okay, we kind of put like someone who's implied to be like the same level as the Raikage. Put the Raikage in this fight, it kind of looks a little bit more outlandish. Now, to get into more like some specifics of like how the fight would go, you could say like Tsunade would just punch through Haku's ice mirrors. She would also one shot both of them. There's no reason to suggest either of them could take any of her punches. Even if you believed Haku to be vastly greater in speed, she would just regenerate everything that either or could do to her. Like any sword slashes from Zabuza's blade or any like ice techniques or needles thrown at her, she's just going to be able to continuously regenerate. And even like when it comes to protecting Tazuna, she could summon Katsuyu to like protect him or keep him back in the battle, or actually assist her in the battle and just have Tazuna on her. Like she'll just shoot like what is it? It's like acid or
It
like
is
acid
acid.
slime or something. Yeah.
Yeah, just like another thing that she can do, like when we saw, like, so she's protecting basically like a totally vulnerable person here. In the Sannin showdown when Naruto passed out, she was taking, Orochimaru went straight for Naruto, and Tsunade just took every single sword slice that Orochimaru tried to throw at her. So this is like, if she can do that, then she can do that here as well. And it's just generally like, this is again like two Jonin versus the Kage. And it's, even
Yeah.
though Tazuna is there, I think Tsunade can still get it done. So
Yeah.
she does move on to round two, which is the Orochimaru in the barrier. So we actually think that she likely loses this one because she has like the worst possible toolkit for dealing with summonings, right? Or basically her entire offense is just punching people. And we actually did see like she could punch a hole in Madara's wood clone, but these just punching a giant hole in a reanimation only incapacitates them for a little bit, which gives you a small window to like seal them, but she has no way to seal any of these reanimations, right? And going even further than that, we saw with Hiruzen, like when the reanimations were protecting Orochimaru, Hiruzen basically had like no interactions with Orochimaru for that fight, especially in the manga, right? Like he was trying to go for Orochimaru at times, and the reanimations were just perfectly protecting Orochimaru. And it's generally agreed upon that like old Hiruzen is still stronger than the Sannin, so we're putting like a weaker fighter here who has a worse toolkit to deal with the reanimations. It's just like again, even if she somehow beats Orochimaru, she still has to deal with the reanimations, which she might just reach her limit with that. And even if she manages just to like punch a hole through a reanimation, the other reanimation can cover until the other reanimation regenerates, and it's just like it's not a good situation for her at all.
Yeah, she doesn't really have any ceiling to take them out or like put them away permanently. So it's just more so they're just gonna keep coming back till she runs out of chakra from flinging it at them. You brought up a great point. She's like the objective worst fighting style for the Edo Tensei. This isn't even encountering for like what if the Edo Hokage start bringing out like the Bringer of Darkness Genjutsu while Orochimaru like runs in with the grass longsword. Like how does that go for her? Obviously not well. Like it's a bit questionable how she deals with that situation. So she just really doesn't have a good toolkit. He has answers for her. They're both Sani. They're both like that's kind of the point of the Sani. They're supposed to stalemate each other. In which case, like Orochimaru, like it's gonna be too difficult of a matchup for her. She just doesn't have like the toolkit to take him out.
So this is what we're gonna say that along with Hiruzen, she gets caught in round two again. That's where her gauntlet ends, which means that we can move on to Kakashi, specifically Wara Kakashi, not DMS or anything, because that would just be ridiculous. But we
Like
can
why?
start with round one, of course, which was kind of funny because Kakashi was in round one, but he had Team Seven with him. So in this situation, he has a very good matchup in the sense that if anything goes bad, he can just Kamui Tazuna out of the like out of the situation, and then like Zabuza and Haku, they have no way to go to the Kamui dimension. And even if like Kakashi's like if he starts getting overwhelmed, he can just Kamui himself out too. And then Zabuza and Haku don't care unless they finish their job of killing Tazuna. But as for like let's say that he's not gonna just Kamui them like at the beginning of the fight, more than likely Zabuza is going to use the hit and miss jutsu, which Kakashi can just do the same thing and using the Fang Pursuit. That's going to force Haku to self-sacrifice, and then that's going to be Zabuza versus Kakashi, and again, we already saw that outcome.
Yeah, he's gonna just. It's honestly like the original fight, but worse. And then Kishimoto was like, "Let's write this in the war arc," and it was the same fight, but like way shorter. So it's like they're on it. Like just to add on to everything you said, because I don't have it like too much to say. We already saw this, and we saw this rendition like twice, and nothing really changed. It was still, if anything, Kakashi kind of wiped a little quicker. So yeah,
It's really the Conway here that just fully,
yeah,
saves Tazuna.
cements it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But anyway, on to round two. This one's kind of funny too because like basically Sharingan shenanigans. So basically, Kakashi, if things get too sticky for him, he can easily just Kamui the barrier to just escape out of it, right? Like we've seen him Kamui the entire Eight Tails. He can easily just Kamui like a little hole in the barrier and escape. And when he escapes, he can easily team up with Jiraiya, Guy, and whoever else. And at that point, it's basically because we saw like the rest of Orochimaru's forces, they got defeated and had to retreat. It's going to end up being like Jiraiya, Guy, and Kakashi, Roar Kakashi versus Orochimaru and his summons. We already know like Jiraiya's like a Sani and Guy has gates. Kakashi is no joke either. And more than likely, like even if like Orochimaru gets defeated and before the summons are stopped, someone in the village is going to have some way to like deal with it. Like some of the summonings in the war arc, they literally just put like a barrier around them just to contain them.
yeah. That's like the same thing that even happens during like the pain attack. Like random Anbu are able to like prolongly stall or like deal with even pain summoning. So it's like compare this to like the giant snakes. They'd have answers.
Just a simple fight because like the Conway stuff. But anyway, on to round three. We're gonna skip to Datara and the Sand Village. So in this condition, they're going to be taking Gara's role in that they feel inclined to protect the village if necessary. Now, if the village does get destroyed, it's not like the end all be all. That's not like the end of the fights, but it's something that Datara can exploit if he feels necessary. Now, the only reason Datara dropped C30 originally because he knew that Gara could move a sand to block it. In this
Yeah.
case, he's not going to do that unless Kakashi shows him Kamui, because then Datara can make the connection, oh, I can distract Kakashi and force him to Kamui.
A direct 1-to-1 I'll make in terms of like Kakashi versus Data, at least at this point, is that Kakashi's going to be moving better than the heavy Sasuke, who was moving phenomenal against. He was moving great against Datara. He was honestly, there's blatant points in the fight where he's able to tag Datara on the ground and force him into an air retreat. So Kakashi's going to be moving far better than that Sasuke being like superior. He's going to have the same elemental advantage with this Raikiri being more potent than any of Datara's explosive clay. So you can make the case like no matter what Datara throws at him, he's going to be able to like I guess you could say diffuse the bomb with his Raikiri. Like it's going to be easy enough, and he's going to notice its Earth style signs. So it really like isn't in the cards for Datara, especially with the fact that he's trying to capture his opponent at this point, and it just makes it all the more easier. when like this is in conjunction with Kamui, and like we even saw this like minorly or with Kakashi versus Deidara when they actually did fight in the show. With Kakashi was far less mastered with Kamui, and Deidara was able to wiggle out of it. Like compared to this time, like in the war, this dude's trying to snipe people's head offs with Kamui. So it's just like it's a different realm. So a lot of people might bring that up, which is fair enough. But I also want to note that Kakashi's like base stats, he's pretty much like a heavy Sasuke on steroids. Like realistically speaking, like yeah, he can't fly, but he does have like ranged lightning attacks as well. So it's not it's not bad at all.
Yeah, and it's like at any point that Deidara, like if he tries to trick Kakashi and try to get like a quick C1 next to him or even a C2, like Kakashi can just Kamui the explosion as like a last second save of himself. And then
Yeah.
also like when Kakashi did use Kamui on Deidara in the original arc, like Deidara was off guard because he was just trying to lure away Naruto, flying at the same speed, a straight line. It's
Yeah.
still like a problem here because there's the element of surprise to it. So like he may even be able just to Kamui Deidara, Kamui his bird or something. It's definitely a way that he can deal with the range. And it just feels like if Deidara is trying to capture, be safe and capture Kakashi here, he's not going to get it done. So anyway, that moves on to the next round, which is round 4. That would be Sasori. And we decided to give each Hokage 2 antidotes for this fight since the original fighters had the same condition.
If you want to kind of get into it, he should be able to just like ride carry the Haruko puppet or its tail. There really shouldn't be anything. None of Sasori's like puppets are really gonna be able to tank his ride carry at this point. In which case, like Sasori's gonna come out. Kakashi's gonna be able to notice the core with his Sharingan. Even Deidara was aware of the core and he didn't have any visual prowess. Might be because Sasori showed it to him, but I digress on that point. In which case, you could make the case like he could actually just Kamui the core out of Sasori from like a range if he saw it. Which I mean, look, I'm gonna be
It is
honest. Like,
possible.
dude, these are the strategies this dude's employing in the war arc. Don't like look at us like we're saying stuff. No, he's throwing the kitchen at the wall and seeing what sticks. So don't look at us. Like it's a very big possibility. Or if you want to start getting into it, he could like maybe honestly ride carry the core. Or maybe use his ranged attacks. The third Kazekage puppet, like while it's impressive that Sasori took him down, it has like all these crazy sand attacks. None of them are gonna be fast enough to really take down Kakashi. They more so peak at like Raza's level in the war arc. So there's no real way to say like they'd be as fast as Kakashi at this point, who was like relevant in like the Obito fight and such. And even if he did get hit by like poison gas or something, he has 2 antidotes. What may be an issue for Kakashi is the 100 puppets. In which case, like there is a chance, like he might be like begin to get overwhelmed. I will say the puppets aren't like this. They might not blatantly overwhelm him if like Sakura and Chio were able to like combat them like shortly and like go on. He also might just try and like dash across the battlefield and beeline it for Sasori. So realistically, like I don't even see the fight getting to the 100 puppets just because like Kashi's so like his stats are just so high at this point. He has like a direct answer for Sasori.
Yeah, it's definitely, and like we said at the beginning of the video, like the opponent needs like a 60% chance or better to win to eliminate. So we don't feel like that's the case here. So we'll move on. Kakashi gets to move on. And he gets to move on to fighting Kakazu and Hidan. And there's not really any special conditions here. It's just a win. So this is kind of funny too because he was fighting here. He was basically like after Shikamaru was fighting, he was basically fighting alone. But anyway, he does have some answers here. So in the original fight, Kakazu was way stronger than him, and he was able just to pin him. And he was about to take Kakashi's heart, but Hidan ended up cursing Kakazu and saving Kakashi. In this situation, that actually creates the perfect opportunity just to Kamui Kakazu, because he's literally grappling onto Kakashi and just staying in place, right? And Kakazu probably wouldn't see it coming if that's the first time it comes out in the fight. As for Hidan, like there's no way, like Hidan's just kind of not on this level at this point.
Rip.
Yeah, like Kakashi's fighting like some of the version 2 Jinchuriki during the war arc and holding his own, right? Like his lighting style is going to be problematic for Hidan. Even if Hidan, he does have Kakazu's cover fire, which helps a lot. But even if Hidan curses Kakashi can just Kamui him if Hidan goes into his little curse ritual because he's literally going to be standing in place, right? So it's kind of like it's kind of just like bad luck for Kakazu and Hidan that they're standing in place.
Yeah, there's no real like again, like we saw Kakashi, like we saw this fight. There's not too much to say on it. Even with this weaker Kakashi, he was performing very well in the fight for like having a disadvantage and having to worry about like Ino and Choji as well. So it's honestly gonna be like the same thing with like Kakashi's gonna employ like the same strategies with Kamui on top and like a larger chakra supply and like better raw stats. It's just kind of it's the same, just like kind of worse for them.
I definitely think that Kagasu is going to give him trouble, but again, it's like this is close enough that we can definitely clear Kakashi, move him on to the next round,
Yeah.
which is fighting Pain in Sage Mode Naruto's condition. So basically, you're just going to teleport in front of Pain after the Leaf Village has been destroyed, and you're going to have to fight Pain by yourself. But the Diva Path is powerless after destroying the entire Leaf Village, at least for a short while.
So a lot of people off rip, right? What their instant like when looking at this matchup like on paper, a lot of people are gonna just jump to like Kamui GG. That's not the case here. Now, while we were like hyping up Kakashi's Kamui at this point and how proficient he is with it, it's not like he's that far in the war arc where he could simply just spam it. Like for example, he's not gonna be able to just Kamui 6 times like shotgunning like a revolver. And like they yeah, like where they like swing a revolver and it rotates. He's not doing that. He actually it requires quite a bit of fatigue when he does it against Obito. Like there's every time he does it, like he's either like having someone like to fall on, or he's just like falling on the ground after the strategy is employed. So the Kamui does like drain his stamina quite a bit. It's actually a big stamina hit. So and this is like the reason this matters is because with the six paths, a lot's going to be thrown at him. And with the Tendo Pain in the back, because not a lot of people are going to consider that Tendo Pain is going to be blocked from Kakashi's peripherals, and a lot's going to be thrown at Kakashi, making it so if he doesn't Kamui, like A, it's going to give Tendo time to recover, and you might say he could take out some weaker pains. But if he does, that's almost worse for him.
There's this thing about Warwick Kakashi. There's kind of a misconception that he has like infinite stamina, and like there's no drawbacks to Kamui. Like people in some of my videos are like Kakashi just Kamui's everyone GG immediately. It's not really the
Yeah.
case because like even when we saw when he was fighting Obito before Obito was unmasked, like he is throwing out Kamui like several times, but after that he literally has to like drop to his knees. Or another time he literally just falls down and like his eyes are bleeding, right? And in that situation, he was fortunate that he was working with a team. He's a very good support member. I think he's a lot better as like a supporting member of a team than like a
I agree.
one-on-one type of guy. So it's like in these previous matchups, we felt like he had a strong chance to get Kamui off the first time, which is gonna be good for him. But as the fight goes on, he's gonna be throwing out lightning style and stuff. If he just like let's say he Kamui's the Diva Path, he's going to probably fall down and be vulnerable, and then he has 5 paths of pain that are all gonna try to kill him at once. He's gonna end up like Jiraiya, basically.
Yeah. I'll say this too. The problem is with Pain as well, is that even if you're like verbatim faster than Pain, the problem is like he gets like an aimbot like boost because of the fact that they have shared vision, right? So they're just like they're able to like preemptively like move out of the way. So like being Pain's even able to like dodge people faster than him due to this reason. Like he was able to do this with like Sage Mode Jiraiya and Sage Mode Naruto, even though like Sage Mode Naruto was like and Jiraiya were like physically like bodying the pains in terms of the raw stats. There's also the fact that like that even if Kakashi like Kamui is like some of the pains, you brought up to me and like when we were talking about the animal summon might be able to summon them from the Kamui dimension. That's a possibility. Or if he starts like breaking them down with like Raikiri, the King of Hell can start reviving the Pats as well. So he's gonna have a lot to deal with. Isn't even discussing like the animal summons themselves, right? Like he's gonna be like there's certain summons that he'll be forced to use Kamui on, like the pain summoning dog that like infinitely like regens. He's gonna be forced to Kamui that, or he's just gonna be left with a giant summon to deal with in the background with no real way to like deal with it. So again, he has answers like again like in the work. He does that thing where he has the clone and they like grab a Raikiri cable and like they run across the battlefield. So you can maybe say like he does that and clip some pains. It's a little harder to say, but more so we're like kind of talking about the Kamui point.
This is just an example. Like we're not saying like 100% Kakashi loses, but the chances are strong enough that we don't feel like he deserves to advance. So
Yeah.
that's where Kakashi's gauntlet is going to end, and we can move on to Tobi Rama. So for Tobi Rama, I'm going to be taking we kind of disagree on the later ones, so I'm going to be leading on the first one. So I'll be leading on the second one or the latter half. We'll get to that, but for like the first one, it's going to be very easy for Tobirama just to mark Tazuna, and then he can teleport them out of harm's way when need be. So he was actually doing this when the God Tree was like wilding out, and he could just teleport Shinobi away from the God Tree that was trying to consume them, and just generally like we already said, like Tsunade, Tsunade, Old Hiruzen, Kakashi, they can deal with Zabuza and Haku. Like this is Hokage versus two Jonin. Like we feel like he's very capable of winning here. As for round two, this is kind of like Kakashi's fight, which is kind of goofy. Like he could probably just teleport out of the barrier. Like at some point when Orochimaru takes them hostage and then sets up the barrier on the rooftop, he could put
Yeah.
a mark somewhere. Like he could put like a flying Raiji mark on his seat and then just teleport there, or just like he has some other kunai like at his house that he could just teleport to.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
yeah, and we talked about like with Kakashi, he can literally just team up with like Jiraiya and Guy, and we don't have to explain that's too much for Orochimaru. And then the reanimations, you can put a barrier around them and then do whatever you want with them another time. So anyway, for round three, which is the Data round, it's a little bit more interesting. Now for this round, I don't think that Data would try to use C3 because Tobirama doesn't have a very good way to stop it. But as for like them actually fighting each other, Flying Raijin would be a very good like off guard attack to close the distance between one another. So like if Tobirama just throws a bunch of kunai at Data and Data easily dodges, he can just teleport right next to it and then use some type of water style or something. And it's generally like if Data was struggling to hit Sasuke without like the help of landmines from Toby and stuff, we think that Tobirama can definitely physically save himself, and then he also has like the ability to teleport if there's like some type of close call. So we just
Yeah.
feel like, if Data is having to pull his punch here, he's not going to capture Tobirama. And so that brings us to the Sasori fight, which is what we agree on, but I'll let TG kind of take over for this one.
Yeah, so the thing about, Sasori in that like the problem A Sasori starts in the Hiruka puppet, which honestly gets smashed like early on in a lot of these matchups. For Tobirama, you could maybe make a case he like just slashes through it with his like flying Raijin slice if he even needs it. Or he'll just use like his Suiton, like his severing wave to just cut through it. He might accidentally cut through Sasori too, but nah, I'm not gonna listen. I'm not gonna be that guy, but but realistically, none of the third Kazekage attacks are going to be hitting Tobirama at this point. He was very relevant in the Jubito fight, especially if he marks Sasori, any part of Sasori's body, or the third Kazekage, or maybe any puppet parts scattered throughout the battlefield. So I definitely see him taking on like the third Kazekage puppets. Even with the Iron Sand, it's just not that durable. Even Sakura is able to break it. More so, what I see being an issue for Tobirama even is like the 100 puppets, which he honestly has answers to with his large scale Suiton. He also has shadow clones that can aid him throughout the duration of the fight. He tries to do them in the barrier and he can only summon two. But I do see this like kind of being similar to the Kakashi scenario where, in my opinion, it kind of ends a little bit before it gets to that like later part in the fight where Sasori summons the 100 puppets.
I mean, like, you also brought up a point where, like, the 100 puppets is, like, daunting because Sakura and Chio were able to deal with it because they did have Chio's 10 puppets to, like, take them on head first. For
Yeah.
Tobirama, he can use shadow clones, but like you said, it's very possible that Tobirama can win this before he results to 100 puppets.
And then for the next fight, we have Tobirama in the Kakazu and Hidan fight. And I honestly think this is like kind of a not a similar situation with the Sasori fight, but off rip, Hidan's not really that relevant in the fight if he's not really hitting that Kakashi. He's not going to be hitting somebody who's like faster with Flying Raj and teleportation. It's not reasonable to assume the slowest member in the Akatsuki's hitting this Hokage level fighter. It's common sense. In which case, he maybe gets dealt with a couple of ways. He might honestly just get split in two by Tobirama's like water style, or maybe Tobirama like flying Raijin slices like his head off or something like that. Maybe does his body and like his head doesn't roll. Regardless, he's gonna deal with Hidan very shortly. In which case, he'll also have to deal with Kakuzu's hearts. I think it's also a similar situation here where he can just make support for himself to deal with the hearts while he deals with Kakuzu himself. It's really just gonna be like Tobirama stalling out Kakuzu while his hearts get taken out one by one. they again these hearts weren't able to like overwhelm Kakashi when he was by himself. So to say they would overwhelm Tobirama, who's a lot more slippery of a fighter, it's a little like it's a little harder to say, especially when he's just gonna honestly be flying Raj and slicing them. He has options like if you even want to go into it, possible Genjutsu. It's just it's a little bit of a similar situation where he's just gonna be summoning support for himself and being very fast around the battlefield.
I don't really have anything to add to that fight. For the next round, round six, we differ. So I'm gonna start, and then TG is gonna continue for a while actually. So for Tobirama versus Pain, basically, I definitely do believe that for the dog summon, the one that can just continually divide itself, is problematic because Tobirama doesn't have much of a way to deal with it unless maybe he teleports it far away from the village, but I don't think that would work because the animal summon can just summon him again. Of course, like I said earlier, he's going to be starting the fight with the Diva Path is just not going to be have any power. So he's going to be fighting the weaker paths, which probably won't be too much of a problem. But I do believe that once the Diva Path enters the fight, it's just not. It's just like I don't see Tobirama having much of a path to victory, right? Because he's already going to have shown like a lot of his water style and flying Raijin by the time he gets to just the Diva Path. Like at that point, Pain can just ragdoll him with like almighty pushes and universal pulls, right? Like
Yeah.
we saw that Pain in one almighty push after he regained his power, he instantly just defeated like the three large toad summons that Naruto was fighting with. And obviously, we know that like at max power, he can destroy a village with his almighty push. So he can put the right amount of almighty push power onto Tobirama and just push him and defeat him. Or he can pull him, as we saw he did once he pulled Naruto. He did like one pull against Naruto, and that was it for Naruto. Now, of course, Tobirama does have flying Raijin, but I'm a believer that Tobirama's not like the most liberal user of flying Raijin like Minato. Like when he tried to flying Raijin Madara, we saw him flying Raijin twice, and then he got defeated off panel. So it's not like something
Yeah.
like he's not just gonna flying Raijin like a million times in this fight. Eventually, Pain's going to push him too hard, or he's gonna pull him and then pin Tobirama, and that's gonna be it in my opinion.
So I'm on like the contrast of this. I feel like Togurama like would be able to deal with like pain summonings. I'm more so on the side that I think he would like deal with the weaker members in time to deal with Tendo Pain himself. Just because if he's like reacting to like the Jubito level speeds and like marking these characters, I think that he would be able to like place marks around the battlefield to the point where he would just be taking these characters out with his like flying Raijin slashes. I guess like a good example of this is like Izuna in the War Arc. Like Tobirama's whole like fighting style is like pretty much striking when his opponent's like secure pretty much securing victory. So there's like ways he can deal with the pains. Like he can like create steam with like his water style similar to that encounter. In which case like he'll strike through the water with his like flying Raijin slash. So I generally think like he does like mop up the crew like and he's able to like pretty much clear the battlefield to where their shared vision like doesn't matter because he can like create it or like flood it with misty water. In which case, like he can pick them off one by one. In which case, even if Tendo Pain arrives, I think it's a situation where like even if he gets pulled in, he would be able to like teleport to like some marks he placed or a kunai he has back. I think no matter what, he's gonna be marking the Pain's bodies even when they're down, just for like having a location to teleport. Even we see like Kakashi's able to like momentarily like resist the pains. So in my opinion, I just think like Tobirama would realistically just wipe the weaker pains before Tendo recovered. And if Tendo did recover, he'd be able to exploit that 5 second variable, which I think's enough time for Tobirama to take him out.
Not really anything else I have to say about that. So basically, TG, since I don't believe that Tobirama gets past this, TG can take Tobirama as far as he wants now.
So we have like fight seven, which is Danzo on the bridge. Now, my like little stance on Danzo is that unless Danzo really kills the person or like slashes them off rip, like he attempts to do with Sasuke, he's not gonna be able to really win the fight. Because after that moment, Sasuke just began ragdolling him. There was literally the whole fight was just Danzo respawning until Sasuke like used up all his lives. In which case, like Tobirama would just be able to like if he didn't stall out Danzo, he would just be able to continuously kill him until Izanagi ran out. The reason that fight proceeded the way it did is because Sasuke's stamina with the Mangekyo Sharingan wasn't as acclimated as it was with like his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So realistically, I think Tobirama's just gonna be like killing Danzo over and over and over again. I don't think Tanzo's going to be able to surprise him, especially considering Tobirama's sensory feats. They're actually quite impressive. I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but he should be able to just sense when Danzo is appearing on the battlefield, especially since he's able to like sense when the Genkaku and Genkaku squad, as well as how many members there are, like based on their chakra signatures, is like from across the forest. So I think he would just like appear every time Danzo like respawned and just take out his life if the initial one doesn't work. And then for fight 8, we have Obito during the Nine Tails attack. Now, for this fight, the only condition that is present is that they only have to defeat Obito, as Kushina wanted to seal the Nine Tails back inside her and like suicide it, so it would like take time to respawn. That or like Hiruzen could like support it and use the Reaper Death Seal to like seal the Nine Tails as well. There is options for this. I think very similar to Minato, Tobirama would be able to deduce Obito's ability. I just say this because Minato had time, like in a one-on-one encounter, like comparing his jutsu to Obito's to really like get a feel for it. In which case, like if Tobirama does land a flying Raijin like hit on Obito, I think the fight would end as at this point in the series, Obito actually isn't too durable. Like he takes one Rasengan in front of Minato and like his arms like falling off and stuff like that. This might more so get into the question of like Tobirama's intelligence in reference to Minato, but I think he's just shown great intelligence feats comparable to Minato's, to the point where like for like a smaller example, like him figuring out that Senjutsu works against Jubito before like Minato even figures it out. Like there's certain examples, so I think like it's debatable, but like Tobirama should be able to deduce if he has enough time in a one-on-one encounter from his own experience with space-time ninjutsu, how Obito's ability, at least to a degree, works. Like to the point where Obito has to materialize to suck him in. I think he could deduce that much. In which case, it could just be a very similar situation. And then for Fight 9, we have Sage Mode Kabuto in his cave. Now, I think this is actually where Tobirama stops. Not in the sense that like I don't think he's like not stronger than Sage Mode Kabuto, but the issue is like Sage Mode Kabuto's arsenal at this point is just so vast. He has the white extreme attack. He's going to be able to paralyze Tobirama unless Tobirama is able to teleport outside the cave. But unlike Minato, Tobirama doesn't have an arsenal of like kunai. Like his kunai he has to manually mark. So it might not even be possible for him like to teleport outside the cave. Kabuto also has water style in addition to like Tobirama's, so it's not like water style is gonna really be that much of a detriment to Kabuto, especially since he could even possibly liquidate through Tobirama's like physical strikes, or blatantly react to them if he's reacting to like the Susanoo arrow or like that level of speed. And even if I did grant you that like Tobirama was able to hit Kabuto, Kabuto has like insane regeneration at this point, so it's a battle of attrition for like Kabuto until like he gets a good hit off on Tobirama. He's basically gonna be like testing his hacks out and seeing which genjutsu, like to use flute genjutsu, he can use that to immobilize Tobirama. He's not gonna have anybody to break him out of the genjutsu. He's basically like one way or another, he's just gonna be like scoping out Tobirama's abilities. In the same sense that he was like scoping out Itachi and like Sasuke, what they can do or like how they responded to it. And he's just going to be throwing like the kitchen at the wall and seeing what sticks. So he does have options in this regard. I think Tobirama, like he could really tank whatever Tobirama hits, or at the very least regen from it. And like Kabuto's kind of like the wrong type of fighter. He's like more akin to like, he's kind of similar to like Hashirama in the fact that he's like this fast bruiser who can heal himself and take down people. So I think Sage Mode Kabuto is kind of where this ends.
Yeah, and so no arguments from me there, so we can go ahead and move on to Minato. Like the first one, like Minato can teleport Tazuna whenever he needs to, and like again, this is Hokage fighting two Jonin. For the second round, this is the same like goofy scenario where Minato just instantly teleports out of the barrier and teams up, and it's going to be too much for Orochimaru. For round 3, in terms of when he's fighting Deidara, like if Deidara is struggling to hit Heavy Sasuke, he's not hitting Minato. Because Minato can also teleport. If Deidara tries to drop C3, he can teleport that easily. Like he can teleport tailed beast bombs. And then like if Minato might struggle by himself to get in the air, but he does have his Toad summons that have extreme jumping ability. So that's gonna they got hubs for real. So like he can use that to deal with Deidara. Deidara doesn't have a win condition, so Minato can advance here. For the Sasori fight, Minato is taking on Obito, and if Flying Raijin level 2 is too fast for Obito, it's going to be too fast for Sasori. And plus Minato has two antidotes too. Like that's more than he needs. So and then on to round 5. It's kind of the same thing. Like if Minato's faster than Obito, then what's Kagazu and Hidan going to do? I mean, he could also possibly split these two up by just teleporting. Like we saw that Minato like teleported all the way back to the Leaf Village from the when he was fighting like Ten Tails Madara. Like he could just teleport like one of these two like far away, so he can take them all one at a time. And like as for Kagazu, like he actually does like Kagazu did briefly survive the Rasen Shuriken, right? And Minato only has Rasengan. So Kakasu does have that going for him, but it's again like if Minato gets a mark on him, there's no path to victory for Kakasu and Hidan here. So going on to round 6, when it comes to how Minato does in this fight, he has some good options. So he does have he can literally summon the same toads that Naruto used to deal with the animal summon, and that includes the dog summon, of course. And just generally, like my idea in this fight is that by the time that the Diva Path reactivated its abilities, there was only 3 paths of pain left, and immediately after the Diva Path reactivated its abilities, one of the paths of pain got taken out. So really it was only 2. In my opinion, I feel like Minato is certainly fast enough and strong enough to take out these lesser paths, and he has like a similar moveset to Sage Naruto too. I think that he can definitely take out these lesser paths and fast enough that the Diva Path will not regain its abilities fast enough. Then the Diva Path is just totally defenseless there, and even beyond that, if the Diva Path does activate its abilities, Minato can easily teleport out of almighty pushes and universal pools.
Yeah, yeah. It's a different story if the Diva Path is like present in the like fight, but the fact that he's still recharging for a majority of it just like leaves Minato to have a field day on these weaker paths. So it's just I 100% agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and so this leads into the next round, which is Danzo on the bridge. And so in this situation, like the Izanagi surprise backstab's not going to work because, I mean, Miso is a sensory type, and if he's going to use sensory abilities here, and also Minato can teleport. So if like Danzo teleports behind him and then tries to say like some type of cool line, it's going to be very easy for Minato just to teleport away. And then for some of the things that Minato can use here, like for Danzo's Tanuki summon, Minato has his own Toad summons to deal with that. And just generally, like, this is again, like, Danzo at best is like Kage Summit Sasuke level. He happened to have like a very good matchup against Kage Summit Sasuke because he has like infinite stamina almost, whereas Sasuke's abilities are very like, all or nothing because he has very weak stamina in comparison to like how strong his abilities are. So it's just like generally like Minato definitely, like if he gets a mark on Danzo, like that's gonna be it. Like he can definitely go the distance with Danzo.
I agree. It's just the problem is like if someone's like if someone can react to Danzo's initial hit and they're just stronger than Danzo, they're just gonna be able to like realistically just stall out Izanagi. There's no real and if anything like Danzo's gonna have a worse time because if he gets like close to dying, he'll just like use the wood style and take his own hit to like his chakra supply. So it's just not too much to say on that again, but yeah, Danzo kind of gets wipes.
And so this leads us to round 8, which is Obito and the Nine Tails attack, which of course Minato did do this. And so we're actually going to say he advances here because he did defeat Obito, and he actually had the choice to live on. Like Kushina offered just to take down the Nine Tails with her, and you also have heroes in there. So because he had that choice, we feel like that justifies him advancing, basically.
No
like,
child support. Yeah. He's like, I'm out. It's clear. I'm not doing it, man. Ow.
On to round 9, which is Kabuto in the cave.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because like he has the thing about Minato like that he has over Togurama and like his more developed like flying Raijins that he has the kunai, right? So like off rip he can spread those throughout the cave. And this is going to be very useful because he's going to be able to sense Kabuto very, like, thoroughly throughout the cave. Similar to how, like, Sasuke and Itachi were, like, sensing, like, the liquefied snakes, like, their chakra signature throughout the cave. Minato's going to be able to sense Kabuto very well. Now, let's say Kabuto, like, starts to fight the same and, like, shoots, like, a white extreme attack. Minato actually does have, like, different kunai to teleport. Even if you argue, right, that, like, he's immobilized, he should be able to teleport if Itachi is able to like throw up his Susanoo. Like you could still like activate a jutsu even though like you're physically being like impaired. I think that's perfectly acceptable. In which case like the jutsu is very short lasting. So if he does teleport away, like the jutsu is gonna wear off and he's gonna have knowledge of it. In which case, he's just gonna kind of be like teleporting around, kind of wearing Kabuto's stamina down. It's gonna be a very tough fight for Kabuto. You can maybe say like Tsuyu Genjutsu, which it might also be acceptable. I think that is like a possible win condition, but that kind of gets into like if the fight even lasts that long, kind of gets more so into like Kabuto's durability as well, which is a little less known. If like Itachi with Sasuke's blade can cut off his horn, Minato teleporting around with his kunai that can like cut the eight tails tail in like half, he should be able to damage Kabuto here.
Yeah, and just to build off that durability stuff, like supposedly Kabuto can heal like Haren and liquefy like
Yeah,
Suigetsu, which is like an amazing defense. But even
yeah,
Minato's one hit from Minato's Rasengan was too much for Obito, and Obito had the regenerative power of Hashirama cells. It's kind of hard to compare those two, I guess, but it's kind of like a question of like, can Kabuto take what Minato dishes out? But we do feel like these two are close enough that Minato can advance. Like we don't feel like Kabuto has like a super strong chance of winning this. And then that
yeah.
moves on to round 10, and that's when the gauntlet starts to get a little serious. So we're at round 10 is you have to fight Warark Obito and all of his Jinchuriki. And so we just feel like even like young Obito was forcing Minato to use Flying Raijin level 2. Now this is like adult Obito with a Rinnegan and like 6 or 7 tailed beast. Or no, it was like 6 tailed beast.
Six,
Like
yeah.
yeah, it's too much for Minato.
The thing is, right? To kind of like put it in perspective for people, even Minato at that stage did think like, regardless of what you think on like Obito versus Minato or that fight, Minato did think Obito is very deadly, and he did conceive that like Obito like was an issue like to like the Shinobi world and that he has to get dealt with right now. So he did find Obito very threatening in his jutsu, with his mindset and everything. And then you cut to the war arc, and Naruto and KCM is like more so implied to be like reaching that Minato level in speed. Like he's constantly compared to that. With the fourth Raikage, like even making note in their flashback. That's just kind of the bar like Naruto gets to that. Then Obito like you stack on these Jinchuriki, right? Who can like go full Bijou. Not only is base Minato not beating that. Like maybe you could argue like he teleports away like a Bijou bomb, but Minato's stamina is not going to be able to teleport away 6 Bijou bombs or 5 or 6. It's just not realistic to think about. This is not including the fact that Obito, who like has been buffed because the Rinnegan like has its own unique chakra that like got added to his own, is going to be fighting alongside them. Who is also just like destroying like KCM2 Naruto as well, who's like greater than like base. It's just it gets a little crazy. It's like bro, like realistically, like you're having all the benefits that Obito just had with more mastery, more raw stats. He's just shown better feats. He has all this continued support. Like you could really see like let's say they start out in the forest. And like you know how like they start off and like all the Jinchuriki start like shooting their jutsu, you're just gonna see Minato like turn around and start teleporting back because he's gonna be put on the defensive. And not to mention the fact that he's gonna have trouble. You can maybe say he'll start sealing the Edo Tensei, but if he does get stationary for more than a second, that's just all Obito needs to grab him and win the fight. Because the minute Obito lands a hit, the fight ends. So it's a little ridiculous to expect Minato to like come out on top of this one.
Yeah, so we think Minato ends there. It's a very noble finishing. If someone thinks Minato can clear this condition, please tell us how in the comments. But anyway,
Educate me, please.
educate me.
Please.
Anyway, on to Hashirama. So just 1 through 7, like we're not. This is God of Shinobi we're talking about here. We're not even gonna talk about 1 through 7, like even the specifics. We'll get to round 8, which is Obito fighting with the Nine Tails. So when it comes to the Nine Tails, like Hashirama doesn't even really need help, as we saw that he was fighting Madara with the Nine Tails. And even further than that, like in the Warwick as Edo Tensei, he could restrain the 10 Tails with his Heaven Deity Gates. So the Nine Tails is getting neutralized in the situation, like before Obito can even summon it to go to the village. Now, as for like the Obito thing, like obviously Obito does have Kamui, which is kind of like just like the idea, like Hashirama is so far ahead of like this tier of fighters like Obito and like Hokage Minato that like the Kamui, like there's no way Obito can just like grab Hashirama and Hashirama just lets himself get Kamui'd. And even if you think that's like Hashirama susceptible to that, Hashirama has wood clones, and
Yeah.
Obito's not going to want to suck up a wood clone.
Yeah, yeah. I'll give like a little analogy. This is kind of like a fly versus a T-Rex kind of scenario, where like he's not gonna be able to really damage Hashirama. And on top of this, right, to kind of make a one to one, like Hashirama was able to like rival Madara their whole life, right? And Madara was like able to instantly deduce how Obito's ability works, which I think does say something about Hashirama and the fact that like he has to have a certain level of intelligence to be able to keep pace with somebody like Madara, who's able to really just figure out ways to deal with jutsu and like decipher jutsu like all the time. Like you see us even with the five Kage, he instantly deciphers like the what they're doing and like what jutsu formation they're going with. So Hashirama does have a lot of intelligence. People just don't make note of it because he like jokes around a lot and he doesn't, but he does like to rival Madara, he would have to have a high degree of like combat skill and intelligence. So I think he would honestly even deduce Obito's ability like in the fight. Like it's not even a question of like Obito can't kill him. I think he would realistically figure it out and just, at one point or another get a hit off.
Yeah, and so that moves on to round 9, which is the Kabuto fight. So it's just like it's Hashirama again, and he's fighting someone like a tier below him. So it's not really fair for Kabuto. The thing Kabuto does have going for him, like if Hashirama decides to restrain him with like some type of wood style, or even like a Heaven Deity Gate, Kabuto can liquefy, and like when like Suigetsu liquefied, like he could escape like his jail cell and stuff. Like it's basically like a budget Kamui. So maybe restraining him will actually kind of be like a problem for Hashirama, but he can
Yeah.
certainly like beat Kabuto to the point where Kabuto just gives up, and then he
Yeah.
can restrain him.
I gotta say, something interesting to note too is that Hashirama might actually be able to, like, straight up just take the Senjutsu out of Kabuto. We actually see this a lot in the series. Madara never have using any Senjutsu in his life saps it out of Hashirama. And then like Orochimaru is actually able to take Kabuto's like Sage mode out as well. So you could even like argue like if he makes contact, he just like is able to absorb the nature energy that Kabuto uses as well, being a user himself. So it's like on top of everything you said, he might just like tap his shoulder and just take him out of Sage mode, and then it's like, what do I do now, man? Like it's Kabuto versus Hashirama. Like you covered it all pretty much.
Then we get to round 10, which is Obito with the Jinchuriki, which is at least a little bit more interesting, but I'll let TG take this one on.
So the thing about Obito and the Jinchuriki is that Obito is actually like very relevant in this matchup. I'll say this, like Obito's like compared a lot to Madara. Like the series portrays it as such, and the data books do as well. And you see this with their techniques. So he's more so like Madara level. And Hashirama beat Madara even as an Edo Jinchuriki. Or not an Edo Jinchuriki, but like it has an Edo Rinnegan. Like Madara got a Rinnegan after his death, and like as an Edo Tensei, like Hashirama still beat him. So, like, to kind of give a one to one, but I'll say this: like, the seven Jinchuriki by themselves, like, they're not gonna be really anything to Hashirama. Even like in the original timeline of the show, he literally got all like like nine Bijou and just traded them out like trading cards to the other nations. So it's really like he would be able to suppress them very easily. Like with his wood golem, he would go around tapping them. In which case, like it more so becomes a question of like with Obito, it's a bit of a similar situation as the last round where if he does materialize, it's going to be a case for Hashirama. You might actually be able to argue like maybe Obito outdoes him, but the problem is like Obito doesn't really have any win conditions aside from him like grabbing Hashirama and comboing him. And it's just hard to see that happening, especially with like Hashirama summoning wood clones in the battle who are going to be throwing out jutsu as well. With Hashirama, like more so like listen, he doesn't admit that Madara is stronger than him. Or like Obito goes on top of the Ten Tails. Only when Obito absorbs the Ten Tails like inside of him does he admit that Obito's stronger than him, which I think does say something in terms of like the tiering of power with like six paths being like right what's above like being what's above Hashirama in terms of the series with like Obito not being on that level. So I think it's a similar situation with like Hashirama being able to regen and him being able to honestly, he's just gonna fatigue Obito. You might even be able to argue he's like able to absorb some of his chakra with his like wood style if he does manage to grab him. So it's just there's not too much to say. It's just it's not really probable that like Obito's really gonna grab Hashirama.
I mean, it's just like generally when the Jinchuriki aren't that much of a factor because like Hashirama was able to take on like the full nine tails, and we saw that half the nine tails was able to bully these tail beasts.
Yeah.
And then also like if Obito gets scared and throw all these tail beasts into the like if he tries to activate the ten tails out of the Gato Mazu, like we saw Hashirama also restrain the ten tails. So it's gonna turn into a Hashirama versus Obito 1-on-1, and I don't see Obito winning that. So we can definitely pass Hashirama here, and that goes into the next round, which is actually fighting Edo Madara in the desert where he fought the five Kage. And so this is kind of self-explanatory. Like Hashirama is alive, Madara is not. When we saw that Madara got resurrected in the war arc, he instantly just defeated Hashirama, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Madara is Edo Tensei, but we saw that Hashirama was able to restrain Edo Madara with the Divinity Gate, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, yeah. It's just pretty clear. I agree with you. The fact that he's alive. Even if you think like Edo Madara is a more complete fighter in terms of raw strength, like the minute he becomes alive, he just starts surpassing his Edo self.
Yeah, and then that goes into the next round, which is actually fighting Jubito. Now, as TG said earlier, Hashirama plain said that Jubito was stronger than him. Granted, Hashirama was an Edo
Yeah,
for that when he said that, but even then, like we saw, it took like Naruto, Sasuke, and the entire alliance having to pull the tailed beast out of him
yeah.
to like defeat him. Like I don't think a live Hashirama can quite compare. So
Yeah, people sleep on Jubito a lot. It's just realistically, like even if you argue like Hashirama could damage him, the truth seeking orbs are just such a neg that like it's he can deal with Hashirama. So yeah, just
pretty clear cut there, which leads us to our last fighter and the most complicated one, which is Naruto. So for the first one, like we said at the beginning, we're gonna progressively power up Naruto when we need to, all the way up to Sage. We're gonna go up to six past Naruto. We're not gonna include Boruto era stuff in here. For the first one, Zabuza and Haku, and we felt like Sage mode Naruto against Pain was the right one because like Kakashi didn't say he surpassed him until he used the Rasen Shuriken in early part two, and even then, like Naruto's fighting two people here. So we feel like Sage mode at that point, he's just too much for like two Jonin. And then if he needs to protect Halsna, he can summon a bunch of Shadow Clones just to protect him,
yeah.
right? And then again, like if Naruto just wants to like nuke these two, like he can throw a Ross and Shuriken, and then like we saw like Kakuzu in the weaker pass weren't even able to dodge a Ross and Shuriken, so pretty clear cut. And then for round two, this one's kind of interesting because it's such a small. If you actually look at how big this barrier is, it's not big at
No.
all. Surprisingly, it seems bigger, but if you actually look like a full like view of it, it's really not that big. And so this is like this is like the goofiest round, but like we feel like Naruto can literally just throw a Ross and Shuriken, and there's nowhere to hide for like Orochimaru. Like even the wood style is not gonna fully block it.
Yeah, yeah, the barrier. I like you brought up the point, like the barrier is small, but no, Hashirama's wood style like it fully encapsulates the barrier at one point, and it's just like a jungle. So it's like
Yeah.
it's gonna snap it, like it's gonna pop the barrier completely. There's no way to argue the sound four are gonna be able to thrust and shuriken. So yeah, I agree.
If this just become a case where like he defeats Orochimaru, but he has no way to seal the Edo Tensei, we feel like he has the stamina to stall out long enough for like the Sound Forward to eventually retreat, like they originally did. And one way he can do this is just use Shadow Clones to preoccupy the reanimations. We just feel like he can go the distance here if it comes to that, which leads us to round three, which is the Data round. And so in this situation, we feel like he can close the distance by using toads. Like we said with Minato, these toads can jump like as high as they want almost. And then as for Data, he's not going to be using C3 because Naruto can't block it. So he can't exploit Naruto in that way. And just in general, like Naruto can ride on these toads and they can get him close enough to Data where like Naruto can make something happen.
Yeah. The Sasori honestly is a lot of the same. With Naruto's just physical might, just breaking down like Sasori's like puppet constructs, breaking the Hiroko puppet. You could maybe even argue like he might like because he's like has such physical dexterity, like the Iron Sand might not even pierce his like a Sage mode skin. It'll be just tough for Sasori. You could maybe say like if Naruto punches him, like he breaks apart and like can come back from it, kind of similar to how he did with Sakura. But the problem is, it's just like Rasen Shuriken's such a wipe that it's just gonna like end the battlefield, and even like Pain had issues reacting to it. Same thing with Kakuzu. So it's just it's such a problem. Even if like you took it like Sasori gets away and like summons 100 puppets, Naruto like isn't gonna have like the restriction of like carrying that scroll, like because he couldn't summon shadow clones due to the scroll. So he could actually just summon shadow clones to match. In which case, it's like it's a little bit of rendition of like what happened against the Nine Tails, which is like crazier to think about. So yeah, realistically, like Sasori doesn't have too much either. Like he's just gonna get he's gonna get like blitzed around. Like and Naruto's just too physically strong, and he has like ways to deal with everything.
I don't feel like this is like 100% wipe, but I certainly feel like Naruto's got a strong enough chance that we can advance them, which gets us to round 5, which is the Kakuzu and Hidan round. Like for this round, like if Naruto throws the Rasen Shuriken at Hidan, he's going to disintegrate. Like,
Yeah.
there's no regenerating from it because like we saw like one of the passive pain got hit it by it and it literally just melted. So Hidan's not a factor. When it comes to Kakuzu, we already saw him lose by the Rasen Shuriken from a weaker Naruto. So it's like we feel like this one's clear cut, or at least clear cut enough that Naruto can advance. For round 6, that's the pain round. It's literally the same outcome, like with the Nine Tails and all that stuff,
Yeah.
for sure. And then we get to round 7, which is actually the Danzo round, which is kind of interesting because Kage-sama Sasuke and Sage Mode Naruto always get compared. In this scenario, Danzo doesn't have Izanagi backstab because Naruto can sense with Sage Mode, so that surprise isn't going to work. Same with Minato. Naruto can use his Toad summons to deal with the Tanuki summon.
Yeah, the problem is like Danzo's just gonna come at Naruto with like a kunai the whole time, or a majority of the time, and Naruto's gonna like flick his wrist and break it. So it's just like the whole backstab thing is not gonna work. Naruto's just too physically strong. You brought up his summons, he's gonna deal with it. Even like Danzo's like chakra blade isn't gonna be really like able to do too much since Naruto can just make giant Rasengans and like crush him from a ranged position. It's just he doesn't even have to like even like directly like interact with Danzo. Like there's no chance for Danzo to maybe put a curse mark on him because Naruto could just hit him with pure nature energy and blow him back like he did the Path of Pain. So like like Naruto even like might just be able to shrug out of the curse mark as well if that gets placed on him. Like we see when he has KCM, he just blows through a shadow possession. So there's certain levels where he's just able to blow through certain jutsu, but in this case, like it's a similar situation with MS Sasuke. They're narratively implied, like everybody talks about it, to be rivals. In which case, Naruto would just kind of like do the same thing, just go around like one-shotting Danzo each time until Izanagi ran out.
Since they're rivals, but Naruto has like the better matchup because he has the stamina. His stamina and his attack power are pretty equal.
Yeah.
Whereas Sasuke's there's a bigger disparity. So Naruto doesn't have like that endurance edge on Naruto. So enough on that though. We can move on to round 8, which is the Obito and the Nine Tails round. This is where we're going to have to upgrade Naruto because Sage mode probably doesn't work here because when Naruto talked to Minato at the end of the pain fight or towards the end, Minato told him like you need the power of the Nine Tails to fight Obito, and Minato was watching Naruto fight Pain pretty much the entire time. So that already kind of confirms that Obito's above Sage mode Naruto in that sense. This brings the question of like, is KCM 1 enough to take down Obito? We kind of feel like it's not enough. It's not enough for us to justify passing him because, like, even when he was fighting KCM 1 and he had like Guy and Kakashi's help, B's help, he was not making much progress at all, and he actually needed to kind of be saved
Yeah.
by his support, by his allies, like a few
Many
times. Like
times.
they
Yeah, right.
yeah, many times. He was very now. Of course, this is a very much stronger Obito, but it still feels like Naruto. He's probably not going to deduce Kamui since he was not doing any deducing of that when they actually fought. It's like, how do you beat Obito if you can't deduce Kamui, or if you're not just like so much faster than him that it doesn't even matter?
Yeah.
So like we feel like if he can't deduce Kamui and he's already struggling against like a stronger Obito, KCM 1 is not going to be enough to justify using KCM 1 here. And so we feel like we're going to keep it simple, we're going to go up to KCM 2 Sage mode.
Yeah, the thing about like KCM2 like Sage mode is that it's just Naruto's adapting to Jubito levels of speed, and like he's able to like fight, he's able to react to it, he's able to perceive Jubito at those levels of speed. He's also very comparable to like Minato with like a KCM cloak stacked on him, the same Minato who like beat Obito down in the that Nine Tails fight. So Naruto is just more so like at that Hashirama Jubito level when he gets into KCM 2 stage mode. And he's constantly growing throughout. So he just kind of like starts sweeping through a lot of these fights, especially like this Obito and Nine Tails fight. There's no real way to say like Obito would really win here. It's like he lost to Minato. Naruto is like rivaling Minato with a KCM cloak stacked on it.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't even necessarily have to deduce Conway. Like he's so much faster than him that it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
And then like as for the Nine Tails, like Kushina or Hiruzen can take care of it like some of the other previous rounds. He clears that round, which leads us to round 10, or sorry, round 9, which is against Kabuto. And this is again, I guess that's the exact same answer. Like he's reacting to Jubito, he's reaching these Hashirama levels of power or like approaching it. Like Kabuto's not gonna compare. Like there's not anything else to say about it. On to round 10. This is Rinnegan, Obito, and his Chinchuriki. And I'll let TG explain why like this is kind of the same case.
It really is, just because even with like just KCM2, that like not like the KCM2 that gets stronger and then Naruto stacks stage mode onto it. No, the first time Naruto does KCM2, he just slaps away and bodies all the Bijou. So the Bijou being relevant in this fight don't really matter. In which case, like Naruto, he's reacting to a stronger version of Obito. That's like the most blatant way you can put it. Like even if Obito has Kamui, again, same thing. I would argue the Rinnegan abilities, even if you said Obito can use them, wouldn't matter against this Sage Mode KCM2 Naruto. Like they're not going to be really able to defer him. If you want to like an example of that, like his fight against Nagato, he literally is dealing with every Rinnegan ability in just his KCM1 form. So realistically, Naruto is going to be stomping this Obito out too. If it was just KCM2, it might be a little more debatable, but that Sage Mode stack on is what's really making the difference here.
This leads us to round 11, which is where he has to fight Madara in the desert. And so we actually feel like he's probably going to need 6 paths to justify him advancing. Because with just like KCM2 Sage Mode, we saw that Madara's full Susanoo was more comparable to like the full Nine Tails, whereas Naruto is only using half the Nine Tails here. And we also saw that Madara's wood style was heavily restraining just regular KCM2 Naruto. And Madara's not even like all that proficient with wood style. Like that's not his main method of attack. Now it's a weaker Naruto though, but he literally needed a guy to use like a Hiradora to get Madara off of his Nine Tails or his Kurama avatar. So I feel like once you get to like 6 paths, that's where like obviously like we're surpassing that God of Shinobi tier and we're getting into that 6 paths tier.
Yeah. Otter is just displaying Hashirama's abilities. He's matching the wood golem, which just like absolutely dismantles the Nine Tails. Like it just grabs a Bijou Bomb and tosses it back. It's very clear that the perfect Susanoo and wood golem, even though Madara says like it rivals the tailed beast, it's very clear by like the feats they show that it is above them. And it is able to just like dismantle them. So on top of having like wood style suppression, he has like an avatar that should be able to like take on Naruto's as well. On round 12, we have Jubito. And honestly, like Jubito does kind of like honestly like one of the weaker 6 paths character. That doesn't mean he's weak by any margin, but even Naruto with like his base Sage Eyes was like performing well against Madara, who's verbatim stronger. And then Naruto gets it like stacks on his Kurama mode on his 6 paths and just he begins to like perform very well against Madara. And his feats go on to like even extend to Kaguya as well. So he just has like such a great arsenal. His sensory's boosted. He has access to all the Jinchuriki's levels of fighting. He's going to be able to harm Obito. And like when you start comparing how Obito like uses 6 paths to like Naruto, it's like night and day. Like Obito's using these constructs, yeah, but like Naruto's now like incorporating all of his like arsenal into it. Like that Kurama avatar that was fighting Obito before. Now you have Naruto in 6 paths, like an avatar. It's like moving way faster. It's just gonna be like boxing Obito down. So it's just or excuse me, 6 paths Naruto is just he's a level above like what Jubito is. That's pretty apparent just because he's more so fighting Madara and Kaguya, who are like both verbatim stronger than Obito.
Yeah, and just like the only thing I want to add is basically like once you get to the 6 path stuff, you don't the Tristing orbs aren't going to affect Naruto.
Yep.
It's like that's like a big part of like what makes a 6 path character above everyone else. So that takes away that advantage, which gets us all the way to round 13, which is the furthest anyone's gone. Um, we actually think that Naruto probably ends here because obviously we saw when Six Path Naruto was fighting Madara, he was doing very well. He was definitely bothering Madara. He occasionally was having to rely on Sasuke, but Madara in this situation, just like we saw originally, he ended up just using the infinite Tsukiyomi, and it was Sasuke was actually the one that protected Naruto from it with his Susanoo.
Yeah.
So in this situation, it's just like minus Sasuke, and Madara's just going to use that infinite Tsukiyomi for an instant win.
Yeah, and I'll say this, because listen, I'm probably with a couple people where I'm of the opinion like Naruto is probably stronger than this Madara, but it's not. That's not the problem here. The problem is like, can Naruto actually defeat this Madara in time, like to where the infinite Tsukuyomi doesn't activate? In which case, like just like the original fight, like Madara should be able to stall, whether that be him attacking the Shinobi Alliance like he originally does, or some other methods like with his limbo clones, he should be able to stall Naruto out long enough for the jutsu to activate. That's kind of why we have Naruto here, because if the jutsu does activate, Naruto has no resistance for it. That's just the end like of the fight. He would have gotten caught in it if not for Sasuke. So it's just more so a question of if you believe like Naruto could defeat Madara in time. I do not, simply because Naruto at this point was still adapting to his six paths abilities. He logically shouldn't stop Madara in time.
We finally made it to the end. I'll just this is a long one. I'll just recap by saying we think Hiruzen loses in round two against Orochimaru because he did originally. For Tsunade, we think she loses in round two because she's going against a Sanin and two reanimations that are giving Hiruzen trouble, and Hiruzen should be stronger than Tsunade. For Kakashi, we felt like he goes up to round six and he loses to Pain, mainly because we just don't feel like he has the stamina to go the entire way. He might have the tools, but he's not. He's going to get vulnerable if he starts using too much Kamui. And then for Tobirama, I said that he went to round six. I felt like he didn't have what it took to beat the Diva Path. TG felt like he did, or at least he had a strong enough case to advance them, and TG advanced him past Donzo. He said that he also beats Obito with the Nine Tails, but he says that he likely loses to Kabuto, or he's not good enough to advance against Kabuto. So TG says round nine for Tobirama. For Minato, we said he gets all the way to round 10. So he gets past Kabuto, and then he has the task of, or he loses against like Obito and all the Jinchuriki. Like, that's a big task. For Hashirama, we said he ends at round 11. Round 12. At round 11, he's able to beat Edo Madara in the desert, but at round 12, he can't beat Jibito. Like, he said that outright. And then for Naruto, with six paths, we think he can get to Madara, but Madara wins because he uses the infinite Tsukiyomi. Okay, I'm done talking. What about you, TJ?
Tired. I want to go home. I want to go home. Yo, listen. Listen. This is a long video. Please like it. You know, we put a lot of effort into it. We understand that this was a bit more abridged than the usual stuff, but for the sake of time, as you could see, it didn't matter. But we tried it. We tried to make it
Tried to cut it down.
We tried, man. So listen, definitely like this video. If you watched all the way, I love you. I'll give you a kiss. Smooch there, you got it. But that's the video. We're like, our voices are dead, dude. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Nah, just like this is like a new type of video, like a new video idea, and just kind of like a more broad, long video type instead of our usual like concise and shorter. So just please like if you enjoy this, please like it so we'll know. Like, we actually do watch like the likes and stuff.
Yes, I watched that. I stay up at 3 a.m. looking at that stuff, bro. Please. No, but yeah, thank you for having me on the channel, man.